Hey, everybody, it's Friday night, and that means another episode of the Asea 5. I'm Dr. Maureen Hayes coming to you from Galveston, Texas, and I'm joined by a group of people, but I'm going to start with Dr. Lee Ostler and let him actually give a formal introduction of Jim and Ann Glenn, who you already know, and Jerry Yerke, who I think you've met before, but to hear a little bit about his background because we have a very special show for you tonight. It's not going to be heavy into the medical part. Of course, you know, you've got some medical professionals here, so we can't help ourselves sometime. But we're going to be talking about kind of the gig economy and why this is such a great thing to be doing as a financial opportunity. So first, let me say that we are talking about redox signaling molecules, and those are not a medical product. So we're not here to treat, diagnose, cure, prevent anything. But these products do help the body do its job at an optimal level. And so you really want to look into those for your health benefits. But also, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. And Dr. Lee Ostler, who has written two brilliant books about redox signaling, first, Redox Matters, which connects the dots for us, but gets heavy into the science to explain what is happening in our body and our cells that make this such a breakthrough product. And then Healthy Matters, which takes that information and allows us to apply it to our lifestyles, which is so incredibly important. And now he's come out with a third in the series, Why It Matters. And this is what we're going to be talking about tonight. Now, Dr. Lee is, everybody's like, Dr. Lee is absolutely amazing. I mean, he is brilliant. He's a dentist from Washington State. He is one of the founding members and presidents of AOSH, which is the American Academy for Oral Systemic Health. So he's also been a clinical professor and teaching other people about oral systemic health and how the oral health affects the body, which we know. And we're learning more and more about because, you know, it's a continuum in the body. And he's sort of a resident expert on NRF2 and different detox pathways that he likes to tell us about, as well as hormesis. So if you've ever been on the 5 before, you've gotten a great education on why we love these products and what they're doing for our body. But most important, well, not most important, but maybe equally important, is why we do this and why it matters. And for Dr. Lee to write this book is really amazing because, as you've heard him say before on the call, getting into this type of business was like having a chicken bone stuck in his throat. So he had to do, you know, a deep dive to make sure the science was real and that the business opportunity was real. So Dr. Lee, come on, you're just an amazing treasure to this company and to all of us. And I'd love for you to introduce the two co-authors of your foreword for your latest book. Take it away, Lee.
Thank you, Dr. Maureen. It is a deep honor for me to be here in this capacity. We do the Asea 5 every week. And I guess for about a year, I've known this day was coming someday when we'd finally be able to tackle and put some of these other chickens to roost, as they say. But the book, Why It Matters, is just recently published. It is available at redoxmatters.com or on Amazon. And I asked, typically books have one foreword in them. That's the typical conventional. And I couldn't help myself with this one. I had to have two. We're going to one up everybody else, right? And I'm going to call him my rich dad. That's how I kind of refer to him in my story in the book. Jim Glenn and I have had a lot of back and forth over the last 2 or 3 years as we've gotten to know each other real well. And he's given me so much perspective and so much advice. I knew I had to have his voice in laying some of the groundwork for legitimizing why this topic was so important. And then when I met Jerry Yerke, who I've only known for about a year since he's been involved in this company, he quickly rose to the top in my mind as a credible witness and someone who can testify to, you know, what is going on in the industry itself that we're speaking about here. The entire concept of why it matters is about what's going on in our economy and what we individually can do about it. And Jerry brings a perspective to what I call multiple streams of income or additional income streams, however you want to phrase that, that is unique because he's had the insider view of this industry and what we're doing to make this a side hustle. So I'd like to kick this off before we get into the nitty gritty. I'd love to have maybe in turn, let's start with Jerry and then Jim. And if you could each give your 2 cents, as it were, some reflections on why you think it matters and kind of what you were thinking as you were going through, the thoughts as you were composing and putting the forward together as you provided it. So Jerry?
Definitely an honor, Dr. Lee. I'm so thrilled to be a part of it. And quite frankly, I had to contact Amazon to get 3 more packages of just note stickers as I'm reading through the book. I can tell you, just when you think you've been a part of an industry for 30 years plus, 20 years on the corporate side, that you've seen it all, you've, pretty have a good grasp of the industry and what's going on. Quite frankly, I have just, with both feet, dove into the book. Obviously, I had a little bit of a chance to know what was coming, but we are at the perfect time. It's the perfect storm, not only for our company, Asea, but quite frankly, Dr. Lee, we've talked about it in depth. People are hurting. People are hurting financially. They're looking for the side hustle, the side gig. So quite frankly, I don't think there's a better time to not only be a part of the industry, part of our company, but to have this book. And if I could use a very quick analogy, I follow college football, probably a little bit more than I should. I'm in love with it. I'm a fanatic. I not only follow the season, but I follow the recruiting. And what I'm getting at is what this book has meant to me since I picked it up about 2 weeks ago and started reading it. It is the playbook. It's the playbook for our career. A good quarterback, a great quarterback, the difference between the two, who knows the playbook? And just to kind of kick it off, Dr. Lee, I want to thank you on behalf of everyone that's going to be reading this, that this is the playbook. I couldn't be more thrilled to be a part of it.
Jim, thank you, Jerry. Jim, could you chip in with your 2 or 3 cents?
Yeah. Having been someone that was in corporate America, and this is kind of a humbling, not easy conversation for me to have. I'll be very frank with you. When this came across our path, I truly believe it was God ordained, because we didn't have anything. And it was hard. And when this opportunity was brought to us, I just said, Lord, if this is real, this is what I've been waiting for my whole life. As an ex-financial advisor for 30 years, I have seen very few people that were truly prepared for retirement. And that's kind of what, because we talked about the rule of 72 and, how often I use that every day when I met with prospects and clients. That was how I had it in my brain. You stick with it, you keep doing it, we up your rate of return, which is practically impossible without undue risk. But I always felt like I was missing something. I just didn't have the tools. I was raised in a very not wealthy family. My dad was an oral surgeon, and but he never taught me any of the value of money. And on the flip side of that, was taught the extreme need and conserving and protecting money. I guess I'm the spoiled brat. But I learned how to work. But when this opportunity came into my life, again, Lord, don't fake me out. But I knew immediately by watching the Genesis video, the 16-minute Genesis video that people can find on discoverredox.com. I knew this was it. there was no other way, Lee, for us to recover any degree of financial dignity without this opportunity. And I knew that there was no way that the mass majority of people out there, I have always felt, even though I'm an upbeat, positive guy, I always felt like a failure. Like I just was not living up to what God had me here to do. And I always felt that as a broker. I started off in 1986, 87 crash happened. I mean, the ups and downs of the stock market, the ups and downs of my personal life. I wasn't able to save money at one time, before and we had, a little over $500,000, saved up, and man, you could just see the rule of 72, maybe working, but then it was gone. Starting over in my 40s, and I knew that you had to have so much money saved up to allow the rule of 72 to work. There was nothing I could do. There's no way I could save enough money ever. And so I just blocked it out of my mind. I attempted to help other people with the minimal amount of money they had saved up. But when this book, and you and I talked about this, I can't remember how long ago that was, Lee. To me, this is the answer. There are no other answers for people that are struggling and have blocked it out because I didn't like to think about it. I mean, I had no other answers, guys. I had lost my job in a local bank, and I did nothing wrong. So corporate America said bye. I'm building, of all things, water features. I'm a guy have had 10 back surgeries. I was addicted to pain pills. I was taking 500 pills a month, and I'm building water features. I grew up on a horse farm up in Ohio, and I love to build freshwater stuff. And so, but it was hard on my back. And so I was making decent money, but I knew that wasn't going to go very far. But when my best friend did the most loving act by sharing this with me, it's been praises. It gave me the answer that we needed, that we had to have. And honestly, Lee, I don't know where we would be right now if it wasn't for this particular, like Jerry said, it is the absolute perfect storm. And you're right. This is the playbook. I just pray people get it and read it and do what Jerry. Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you, just for people who may not be familiar, do you mind explaining what the rule of 72 is?
Yeah. So if you have $100,000, you have money in the bank, and you're earning a set rate of return, just get your calculator out and go, okay, well, what's your rate of return? If you've got a 5% rate of return, then divide that by 72. And that will tell you how long it takes for your money to double. Okay. So, no, you take 72 and divide it by your rate of return. I'm sorry. And so if you have $100,000 and you're getting 6%, your money in theory should double in 12 years. So there's so many issues that people deal with that. And I have done a lot of financial plans. I used to do a lot of estate planning. And life always gets in the way. So people that have a good amount of money saved up, like at one time I did, and then it just kind of disappeared, whether through life tragedy, illnesses with other family members, a divorce. I'm sure there's been a handful of other people that have dealt with that. So yeah, the rule of 72 is something the brokerage world, and I was taught to use that from the beginning. But the problem is, Maureen, is you have to up your, and Jerry, you guys know this, and Lee, but you have to up your risk. Over the long term, you'll get a better return. But what's the problem in the middle? Is you have more volatility, you have more risk. And so your investments will do this. And there's one thing people can't stand is when it does this, they want out. And they always seem to get out down at the bottom. And then they pull their money out and put it into what's called a cash equivalent, or put it into a money market account or a checking account. And then they wait for the market to go back up. Then they get back up at the top. And so and the human emotions that come into play. So if I would have known about this option, I don't know if you want me to stop talking, Lee, but if I would have known about this and working with people that I had back in the bank as prospective clients they did not have enough money saved up. If, like I told Lee in the beginning, if you're not in your late teens or early 20s and you don't have a good head start at saving money and leaving it in good, balanced mutual funds, don't go out there trying to pick and throw darts and pick stocks. There's a particular mutual fund family that I like. There's a lot of great ones out there, Fidelity and American Funds and, things like that. But people don't do that. So if we can show them a better way of investing your time in just talking to some people and create some additional cash coming in. So that's kind of what we're starting to do. We're going to take some of the cash and start putting that into some conservative mutual funds. And it'll allow me to have a cash flow coming in, right, that I can put into leave. And cash is always, as we say, cash is king during times like this. But now this gives me a chance because we have weekly pay. So we can actually put money back into mutual funds on a weekly basis. And so and then typically with our cash flow in this business, what does it do, Maureen? It generally goes up. So it allows me to put more money into the investment portfolio. But this is the answer. And Jerry, Lee, go ahead. I can talk forever.
Well, I'd like to segue off that because, what Jerry said earlier about the perfect storm is really the foundation for this whole thought process. We have a perfect storm going on in our economy. And in the first part of the book, I talk about my story. And I wrote my story, that section of my story. It was revealing a lot that I don't generally talk openly about. So there's a bit of, risk or something, transparency there in that regard. But these life events happen to all of us. And that's part of the perfect storm. And we've got things going on geopolitically across our country and the world that is creating a risky place to be in with regards to job security, income security, retirement security, being able to pay the bills, inflation. There's all of these things that are occurring around us that we don't have control over. We're going along for the ride, and if we're not preactive and proactive enough to figure out what we're going to do about it, we're going to all wind up on the short end of the stick. And from the health side, I mean, at any moment we could have, and it's not just me, it could be my spouse, it could be my parents, it could be a family member, could have a life event such as a heart attack or a stroke or an Alzheimer diagnosis that requires a change of life, requires maybe not being able to work anymore. Maybe you survived a stroke. It's one thing to die from a stroke. It's another thing to survive a stroke, and now you're completely disabled. So then what do you do? And we all have this idea, well, I'm pretty healthy right now. Well, because I take a lot of medications maybe, but I still have underlying metabolic disease problems that could crop up at any point in time, and should or would they ever occur, or my house catch fire, or there's a natural disaster or a flood or a hurricane or a job downsizing or right sizing, anything that was to affect my income, then I'm in a tough spot. So all of that, there's just a multitude of factors out there. And then you have the personal stuff, like what Jim was talking about, where you wind up in middle life. And again, I talk about this in my story, where I've been somewhat of I look backwards. I never thought I really was at the time, but I look backwards and realized I've been what people call a serial entrepreneur. One after the other. I've had franchises, I've done software companies, marketing companies. Heaven knows I can't remember them all right now, but they not all of them turned out well. And they all have a high degree of risk associated with them. Even my dental practice has a high degree of risk. All it takes is one broken arm, one trip and fall. I don't ski, thankfully, but if I were to go skiing and run into a tree, that could be the end of my income. There's just all of these things that could happen that would affect you. Or in my case, there's a state governor that signed a piece of paper that took my practice away from me for 2 months while everything in the country was shut down. And if you're not prepared for those things, that's a big wake-up call, because you think you're in charge and you're not. And so going back to Jim's rule of 72, in this time somewhere, he and I were having this discussion, and I hadn't really explained to him what my life story, was about, but he made the comment. He says, if you're in your 40s and you haven't got it figured out yet, and he was referring to your retirement future, he said, it's already too late. And I can remember, and I tell about this in the book, I remember having this back and forth with him, like, no, it's not. I can do it. I'm a health professional. I can figure this out. And he goes, no, you can't. And I go, yes, I can. He goes, no, you can't. And we were just like, and finally I said, all right, Jim, why? Tell me why. And he goes, because of the rule of 72. I didn't even know what he was talking about. I had no comeback. And so he explained what he explained to you, that 72 divided by your rate, and a good easy one is 6%, because that's kind of a middle of the road. It's not too greedy. It's not too conservative. And 72 divided by 6 is 12 years. Well, if you take, let's just take, I've looked at the stats, and I think like the average 45-year-old or the mean for a 45-year-old is about $200,000 to $250,000 in the bank. That's what they have saved away. Again, these numbers are all over the board. It depends on what web browser you use and which data set you're using, but plus or minus, you're in there. Let's just say 200,000. And so if you're 45, for example, and you're going to use 6% as your factor, that's 12 years. So now you're 57. 45 plus 12 is 57. And for it to double again, it would be 69. So you're now 69 years old before you've had 2 periods of doubling. So your 200 went to 400, went to 800. And you're thinking, okay, 24 years from now, I will have 800,000 plus or minus in the bank. And even if you just said, let's be generous in our numbers and round it off to $1 million. I've got $1 million in the bank. I'm 69 years old, and I'm going to still stick with 6% interest. Jen told me, he says, you're lucky to think if you're going to get 6, you're probably going to get 2 or 3 at that point, because you're not going to want to risk it. But let's just be generous and say 6%. $1 million in the bank earning 6% interest is $5,000 a month. 60,000 a year divided by 12 is $5,000 a month. Now just consider, if that was you 24 years from now, considering inflation, do you think that $5,000 a month would cover everything and would support the lifestyle that you at least have right now, if not what you would hope to have when you're retired? And so when those numbers, that's the reality of it, because that $5,000 a month is just not going to cut it for most people. That's even way below the average right now. And so it gives you a point of reference to look at your life, and you say, well, where am I going to be at? And maybe it's true, you'll be empty nesters, and the house will be paid for. I mean, some of your expenses might be down, but still it's a wake-up call. And in the book, I have charts and tables that you can use, that you can write in your own numbers. You can kind of use it as a workbook. And you can put your own interest rate, you can get your own calculator, and you can kind of figure out where you're at now and where you're going to be in the future. The alternative to that is just go get a retirement calculator online, and you can do it in a more sophisticated fashion. But this will let you kind of get a pencil, to the paper, and you can get some big rounded numbers in there and realize where you're heading based on where you're at right now. That's kind of the future focus. The present focus has to do with, can I pay the bills today? Am I keeping up with inflation? What if my job goes away? What if they cut back? I'm now 60 years old, and guess what? They brought in a 35-year-old that they can pay 2/3 what I'm getting, and they can't afford me anymore. And I can't afford to work for less because of my lifestyle. I mean, it puts you in a pretty tough spot. So that's Jerry's perfect storm. And it just all kind of rains down on you and brings you to a place where you're saying, I need to do something additional. This isn't about go quit your job and do something completely different like tomorrow. This is about, let's do something on the side. And so this gig economy thing, the reason why it's a gig economy is because it is now mainstream to have a side hustle. It's now the thing to do. You're almost like cool, you know, and it almost brings you to the point where when you're just in natural conversation with people, you could say, so how's the family? You know, how's the job? And what are you doing for a side hustle these days? Because it's such a natural thing. Everybody's got a side hustle, or it seems that way. And in fact, one of the statistics I found was that currently 40% of physicians have side hustles. And we're not saying this specific side hustle, but a side hustle. And that's a theme I developed in my writing is, let's first start off with the idea that you need to do something additional because you're too at risk. What Jim said earlier, and this is one of the things he taught me, he said his clients would come into him weeping and moaning and wringing their hands because they were having to access their savings. They had to take apart their estate and their investment portfolios to replace the income that they weren't getting, or because they had to cover a medical bill, or they had to rebuild their home or do something, you know, extraordinary. And all of a sudden you start drawing down or prematurely withdrawing those sacred retirement funds, and you don't get the time back. You may put the money back, but you don't get the time back. You get to start that rule of 72 thing, the time doubling all over again. And so there's no time left. And so by the time you're 40, 45, 50, if you're sitting there with $500,000, you know, in the bank, which is probably the high side of average, you're in a world of hurt. And you just kind of need to walk through these sequential ideas to realize, you know, maybe you've got a few years to figure it out, but don't wait long because this economy is falling apart around our feet. So that's just kind of, you know, connecting some of those dots from the idea of pulling from these financial experts, these industry experts that are in front of you, with this idea that we're all sitting where we're at in a very vulnerable position. Now, there's some listening to this call that, you know, we could all say, well, they have it made. They've got their millions already. And you know what? I'm really happy for them. I'm glad for them. But you wait for another 2008 stock market crash. You wait for another whatever. You wait for another depression. You wait for anything that could take you out. Or if you get a little greedy and you start doing what Jim said of, sell low, buy high, you know, do that a few times and you don't have much left and you're starting over. And so these life events, these economic events that are going on around us are just setting the stage where this is why it matters. This is why it matters to have something additional. I call it income insurance. If you had, and think of this was something that Alan Noble put out a couple months back, where he talked about this thousandaire idea. Because we're kind of guilty, and Jerry, I'm going to turn this to you in just a minute and have you comment on this. We're kind of guilty in this industry of doing this rah, we can make millions. You know, this is how you can get rich quick, or and I'm not saying that people can't do that with this model, but it's kind of a big turnoff for most people, in my opinion. And it's not realistic for most people, in my opinion. But we still need something. And so this idea of a thousandaire means I could do something on the side that would earn $1,000 a month. And that would be the same as having $250,000 in the bank earning 5% interest. So you go, okay, I get the numbers. You can run them on your own spreadsheet. You can say that's the equivalent to $250,000. But here's the kicker. Doing what you're doing right now, whatever your job is, whatever your income source is, whatever your time parameters are, doing what you're doing right now, how long would it take you to accumulate an additional $250,000 net? That means if you're self-employed, it's going through an overhead filter. It's going through a taxation filter. If you're doing it as an employee, you're doing it through a taxation filter. You have to pay taxes on that from whatever your source of income is. So in order to get $250,000, you've got to gross maybe $500,000 or something, whatever your overhead structure might be. If you've got a business that's an 80% overhead, it would be more than $500,000. You'd have to almost do $1 million just to net out a $250,000 clear that you could put in a bank that would then pull $1,000 a month out. And so that's the comparative value of this. That's the power of the asset equivalency, is that $1,000 a month, just being 1,000, which is in our opinion, it's a very conservative thing, very doable, is the same as bumping your net worth or your equivalent net worth $250,000. Jerry, could you expound on that just a little bit from your point of view?
Well, I think, and I know for a fact, what I love about the book is, and the leadership, not only from the corporate side, but also from the field, that has really made it real. A couple of key words. Number one, real. Number two, simple. Business of next level marketing. I no longer call it MLM. It is NLM, next level marketing. Is simple. It's not always easy, but it's simple. And I think what I grasped, literally, there's probably 100 different bullet points, but I'll give you a couple of them. Number one, the word generational, which is in the book. I've read it. I've highlighted it. I've marked it. It's there. And that goes along with what leaders in the company, there's too many to mention, but the two that I speak to the most, Dan Doyle and Alan Noble, watching their videos and their training is literally, I'll take you full circle. When I was a corporate executive for this industry for 30 plus years, if something were to happen to me, it isn't like my executive position goes to my wife. It doesn't go to the kids, doesn't go to the grandkids, but we truly, through the gig hustle, the gig economy, and obviously the company that we're associated with, allows us, as you hear Alan Noble talk in The Thousandaire, if something happened to him, it would go to his wife and kids. If something happened to both of them, the trust is set up for the kids. Generational legacy. Those are key words that in the world of the JOB, the 9 to 5, the 8 to 5, even the executive high-end positions, you don't discuss it, you don't hear about it, it's not even available. So when you can plug into those key points and words, it just makes sense. There's no question about it. And that's what drew us back into the field, to have a legacy, to have a generational position that we can have others participate in the efforts that we started. It's unheard of. Love how it's
like an annuity.
A totally annuity. Thank you. If I could just share two other points that are on my mind real quick. You talk a lot about hope, and that's something, whether it's Dr. Maureen Hayes on stage or another leader, this opportunity, this industry, this side economy, the hustle, it's giving people hope. And that's what I really love, the conservativeness, no longer the $1 million, the Lamborghini, talking about Ferraris. Hey, if you want those, that's great. And you taught me a lot through this book, Lee, the difference between your dream board and your mission or vision board. What really gets you in your belly, what really drives you. That's the important thing, not the ones that are monetary. Sure, vacations are nice, but 4 wheels are going to get me to Trader Joe's just as good as a Lamborghini will get me there. But really, what is our mission and our vision? So those are a couple of the key words. You talked about multiple streams of income. This is the first time I've ever read MSI. I love acronyms. I love abbreviations, multiple streams of income. And this opportunity leads us, just like Jim and Ann were talking about, being at the position they are, the leadership, the teams that they're building, now being able to use those funds for other multiple streams of income. You've hit it spot on in the book. Love it.
Hey, Maureen, could you chip in on that last point? You know, we talked the other day about diversification of income sources, like how far you could spread it, and the wisdom of doing that. Could you comment on that?
Yeah, this is such an interesting conversation, and it's such a perfect time, because I was listening to that 6%, and I was thinking, gosh, I wish we were getting 6% right now. We've seen, we've always been good stewards of our money. My husband and I are both physicians, but if you read Dr. Lee's first book, I did the forward on that. And I started as a single mom. And even back when I was a resident, not making much money, I was investing in at that point, savings bonds. That's how long ago it was. So it has always been important to me to plan for the future and keep that covered. But, even right now, 2008, and now again, just currently, seeing what you've put aside and worked hard for all those years kind of disappearing, it is that feeling like of almost panic, like get it out, get it out and put it into cash. But it's interesting. I was exposed to network marketing back when I was chief of anesthesia at a hospital 20 years ago. And somebody came and talked to me, was drawing the little circles and sticks. And I didn't quite catch the concept. And I remember, it's a funny story. I asked him to step out into the hallway so he could read my name on the plaque on the door. And I kind of sent him away, just kicked him out. I've got a job and it's a high paying, very, very prominent position. So, but I was on my way to a medical conference and my mom had given me a book that I had just shoved into my briefcase, and my husband was watching a movie and not paying attention to me. So I get the book out on the plane, and it was Rich Dad, Poor Dad's Cash Flow Quadrant. And I read that book. I was 40 years old, you guys. I was a physician. I was chief of anesthesia at a hospital, and I did not know how money worked. I did not understand that even the way that I was working, I was an employee trading time for money. And interestingly, when I left my practice, when I stopped practicing medicine, they stopped paying me, even though I'd worked there for so many years. I was like, how rude, where's the love? But, that's how it is. And, in something like this, and, if you don't have money coming in from somewhere else. Now, I was very fortunate because my husband kept working, so that was one of my streams of income. But, we've always been investors. We've always been a little entrepreneurial, because once I read that book and once I understood, then I went on, and I'm laughing, Jerry, at you, because I don't know if you ever read any of the Robert Allen multiple streams of income books, but, I would go and I would learn about real estate, and we owned, rental properties and stuff like that in the past. And, but I had the bug, I actually went back after reading that book and talked to that other physician and got started in that network marketing company, because I thought, this is a business system. I had wanted at one point to own a Dunkin' Donuts. When we moved from Massachusetts to Texas, they had no Dunkin' Donuts. And my husband and I were like, these people need Dunkin' Donuts. Now, we lived in Massachusetts, y'all. I mean, I love donuts just as much as the next person, but it was the coffee. We weren't big Starbucks people. We were Dunkin' Donuts. We ran on Dunkin' Donuts, right? And so we looked into a Dunkin' Donuts. Well, Dunkin' Donuts was going to cost $250 to buy the franchise. And then they wanted you to have another $250 liquid in the bank. And that was before you made any move on real estate or building.
Maureen, that's $250, correct?
Yeah, that'll get
clarify, girl. Clarify.
Okay, $250,000 that you're paying, $250,000 liquid in the bank, and then you have your property. You get your property and you build it out, right? And I don't even know what that costs. And if nobody shows up for work, if you have to have all these employees, and if they don't show up for work, guess who goes in the middle of the night to make the donuts? Like that little guy with the scarf over his face. Me. And I was like, you know what? I'll drink Starbucks. I was like, no. I mean, think about it, you guys. This is a franchise. It's like a micro franchise. And what has been amazing to me is I was a really bad network marketer. So when this one came along, I joined because I knew the drill. I wanted to get the products at the best possible price. But I didn't want to do it because I didn't think I had the skill set for it. And I'm so thankful that I did, because by sharing it, because these are, somebody mentioned, is this just another MLM? No, where else do you get to teach people about life-changing products like this and make a real difference in people's lives? And I am not going to apologize for making money. I've always been paid for what I do. I've always been paid for my expertise and for my recommendations as a physician. You know, I laugh sometimes how much time I give away for free educating people. Whereas if you had to come to my office, you would be paying dearly, or at least your insurance company would. But this is a stream of income. This is solid. This is residual. And we haven't talked a little bit about that, but residual income is amazing. When my husband retires, yeah, you know, we prepared pretty well. We're a little worried with the economy right now, but my husband's going to retire next year. So we'll go down to basically what he's bringing in from his retirement and my Asea business, which is robust and hopefully will continue to be. So this is an incredible gift to have this income, and it comes. You guys, I'm getting paid on work I did 10 years ago.
Right.
Are you? I mean, it's amazing to me. So, you know, this is for me in so many, you know, I love doing this. I love being a doctor, but I love empowering other people to take care of their health. And the fact that I can do it on my own terms, and the fact that I get paid so well, and it's residual, and I do it on my own terms, doesn't get any better than that. So I hope I answered your question.
I'm glad you brought the residual up.
Yeah.
I'd like Jerry to kind of flesh that out, but the whole point of an asset equivalency and a side hustle is there's hundreds of things you could choose to do as a side hustle. You could take in ironing, you could bake bread for the neighbors, you could babysit, you could teach piano, you could tutor math, you could put websites together. You know, you could do any and all of those things, and all of that would make some extra income. But when you're done with it, number one, it's not residual. You're not getting paid on it after the time is expired, or the contract or the job is over, the consulting and so forth. But it's all trading time for dollars. And I'm already spending 30 to 40 to 50 hours a week trading time for dollars doing what I'm doing now. And so the point I'm calling out in the book is that if it's this logical sequence, if I need to do something additional, side hustle, side gig, then how I do that matters, because I want to leverage myself. I want to leverage my time. I want to leverage even the generational thing. I also want to go deep vertically and leverage other people's efforts. I want to earn money in the middle of the night when I'm sleeping, because other people somewhere else in the world are making the cash register ring because of something I put in place. That's working smarter. That's working leverage. That's working diversified. You know, Jim, in the investment things, you always talk to people about diversifying. If you had 1,000 pieces or sources of income, if you had 1,000 people giving you $1 every month, and 2 or 3 of them decided they're done with this, or they pass away, or they can't do anything more, and you lost 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 of those sources, dollars, you'd still have 990. But if you only had one, and that person, you know, gets a serious cold and can't work for a while, then you're dead in the water as well. Could you maybe segue off that and just talk about the quality of the income, as Maureen was mentioning?
Yeah, I just want to mention real quick, because when I saw that word leveraged, as a stockbroker, that's a scary word. You don't want leverage when you're in the brokerage world. People get in big trouble when they leverage by borrowing someone else's money to buy stocks, because when the stocks go down in value, you got to come up with more money. So leverage in the brokerage world is not good. A lot of people use it. They know how to use it very wisely, but you better know what the heck you're doing. Here, the leverage is absolutely beautiful. But I want to bring up what we are doing now is the legacy that we're also leaving. And someone brings up that their husband's watching and they want to know about the health piece. This stuff works. Real quick, this stuff works on everything. It doesn't matter what the issue is. And I know it sounds nuts, but go to discoverredox.com. Alan Noble has given us one of the best gifts we've ever been given, with 2 sites, discoverredox.com and realredoxresults.com. Password is lowercase redox. I know it sounds nuts, but Maureen Hayes, Lee Ostler, and all the other doctors that we have that donate their time to be part of the medical board would not be here if this isn't the most amazing gift that we've ever received. To me, it's a divine gift. This stuff works. Just go do some due diligence like I did as a stockbroker when I had to analyze investments. This is real. But what we're doing, Lee, and what gives me goosebumps is we have been blessed with what we've been able to do with this. But now our legacy, see, we each get, and Maureen, you're doing it, Jerry and Lee, we get to show other people now with the help of this, how they can do it themselves. They can create their own financial independence. They can lower their risk to, if they have an investment portfolio, then this is going to be that much better to help lower your risk and create cash flow. So what we're able to do through this business, and to me, Maureen, I don't know how you feel, but I think it's bigger than the financial blessing. I'm sorry, better than the health benefit. I've got my life back. I'm no longer on medication, 10 back surgeries, addicted to pain pills. 8 years ago, I got off all that stuff. So
Well,
for the last,
health is everything. But if you
it
figure
is.
most disease is caused by stress, and the biggest
Right.
stressor is finance.
Money.
Exactly. And 90% of illnesses and disease are caused by stress. And Alan Noble coaches, the number one cause for stress, Jerry, is
Lack
what?
of money.
Is lack of money. So it's a cyclical thing. Well, I got a health issue. Well, fix the problem. What caused that? A lot of times the health issue is caused by the lack of money. But getting people to wake up, and if we can lovingly share with people, there's another answer. I like to say a better answer, but I don't want to put people down because a lot of people just don't understand this business model. I don't know if that was you, Jerry, that said that. This, or Maureen, maybe it was you. It's a business. This is a business model. And this is the most fair model on the planet because you're paid for what you do. And someone's not, and there's the double-edged sword. Someone's not telling you, we'll coach people. We've got some phenomenal training that we offer here at the company. But to be able to give people this gift, to be able to go create their legacy. I mean, we've got multiple people right now that are making more money than us. And I call that's the way it should be. It's not a stupid, illegal pyramid. Let those things go. That's ridiculous, right? Do some educating, educate yourself. And so I forgot what you asked me, Lee. What are your options, guys?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, what else? Am I going to go and build water features again? No. And I did the numbers with how much we're making today. And when I started this, I was 58 years old. Do you know how much money I would have had to save for 8 years every month? We would have had to have saved $50,000 a month for 8 years to get about $5 million in the bank, earning 3 to 4% to pay us what we're now making. It's impossible. And that's what shuts people down because they have no hope. And it's not so much with their health, which is kind of where I was, but it was also my financial. We had lost all financial dignity. We had a hot water heater break and we couldn't afford to fix it. We had a crock pot that we heated water with, and to mix it with the cold water coming out of the shower head. Don't tell me how bad things get for people. If you put on your big boy britches, and I don't mean to be rude or crude, but guys, you've got time to fix this.
When we did that an entire winter, I'm amazed that anybody can come in this. You don't have to have education. We provide the training, $40. Get somebody in the business, gets a website, they can start sharing it in 33 countries. And I was glad y'all mentioned residual because we were in the corporate America. I was 100% commission. So everything I did to bust the butt on the streets to the businesses, that determined my pay. If I didn't have anybody that month, I didn't make anything. And this, we can go to Utah and see a grandchild and have a great week. Residual income, like y'all said, having the side gig. So many young people are looking for this kind of opportunity. We just need more spokespeople sharing it because they don't want to work for somebody. We've heard great stories, Jackie Wessler and others that they didn't want that. They thought they did. They went to school. They thought they'd love that idea, but they like working for themselves. They like the control of what they do, and they don't want to make, minimal wage or whatever people get to make. I tell people, if you want to get a raise, within 90 days, you can go right now and get a raise. Just get out there and share with more people. This hope in a bottle. That's all you got to do. I think we make it too
real complicated.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
I
go ahead.
commented earlier that this was like income insurance, and I haven't really gotten in a tit for tat with people over this, but in my mind, I've kind of rehearsed this conversation. People say, well, I don't need that. I've got a good job. And it's like, well, okay, but if you don't think you need insurance, then why do you pay your homeowner's insurance and your health insurance and your car insurance? And you can go down the line there, right? Why are you paying insurance if you're so self-assured that nothing's going to happen to you to change your life? And this idea of what an additional income stream does, what you just said, Ann, even $1,000 is a 10 to 30% a raise, over people's existing income. That's the ability to make an orthodontic payment, or to make a car payment, or to not go late on your utility bill, or to decide, which kid gets shoes this month, or which vacation you're going to take. And then if you take the income disclosure statement from Asea, it's published online. If you take that and print it off, take your calculator and a pencil and punch those monthly income numbers in. Just take the low end of the spectrum. There's a low, median, and a high. Just take the least one. Give yourself all the cushion you can. Take that low number and factor it into the asset equivalency, and figure out what does 1,000 or 5,000 or 12,000 or 20,000 a month equal. And pick an interest, pick 6% as a standard, whatever, 5%, and figure out, well, what does that equal the same as in terms of its equivalency in an asset equivalency chart? And then come back and tell me that that's not real. Where else could you go to increase your asset equivalency worth literally by millions of dollars in 2 or 3 years? And again, this isn't get rich quick. That's an asset equivalency discussion. But the point is $5,000 a month, and you go look at the asset equivalency declaration page, the disclosure, $5,000 a month, wherever that is the same as having $1 million. Again, what could you do? What could you possibly do right now that would add an extra $1 million to your asset equivalency, in accounts in the next 24 months, even in the next 5 years? Even in the next 10 years, you couldn't add $1 million starting where you're at in the next 10 years doing what you're doing if you're an average wage earner. So my point is there's power in this, and that's what an additional income stream allows you to be able to do. And all these points of doing it in a leveraged way, because if you're going to do it, you got to think about the infrastructure in your own home. It's a side business. You're doing this from home. You don't want brick and mortar. So, okay, you'll take a corner of the bedroom or something. Well, you still have to have all of your stuff to do that. How are you going to market it? Do you have to do a website? How do you do your accounting? And all of these things that we outsource. We have a $51 million infrastructure at our disposal that we purchased the rights to for $40 one time. We have access to all of that, all of the R&D, the shipping, the accounting, the sales, the marketing, the worldwide distribution into 33 countries. You couldn't even begin to duplicate that out of your bedroom, starting with something that you are infatuated by because it's your favorite hobby, and you're going to turn your hobby into a money source. There's no way. And it would never be residual.
Lee, could I interject one thing?
Please.
That's okay. Maureen, I had no idea that we had the passion and love for Dunkin' Donuts. I grew up on it as well, but I'll take it a step further. And I don't know if you remember this, but I actually,
Children, don't go to Dunkin' Donuts. Stay away.
it's the best coffee. But here's the thing. I actually did that, the franchise world. That's where I came from when somebody introduced this industry to me. I put my name on the line. I signed the paperwork for 16 years, 7 Domino's pizza stores, 250,000 per store. And all I can tell you is no residual income. A pizza goes out the door, it's got to be another one behind it and another one behind it. No global distribution, whether it's a Dunkin' Donut or it's a Domino's pizza store, you have a certain area that you can facilitate to promote your company, for people to enjoy your product. It's not global. And here's the big one. And I could tell and write a book, stories. I've slept in those stores. I've taken showers in a 3-compartment sink. You are married to that business. But I'll share this with you. The store opens up at 11 o'clock and closes at 1 a.m. on the weekends. What happens at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6, 10? Nothing, no residual income, no money coming into the till, only when you're there. And you're exactly right, Maureen. When the manager calls in, the district manager, when the drivers don't show up, you are making the pizzas, delivering the pizzas. You are doing everything. And look at this amazing business that we have with Asea, the playbook, the tools, the product. We own the space. It doesn't get any better.
That's it.
You know, I guess something I'd like to have people do is to take a real life inventory of where you are.
Yeah.
You know, how much do you have saved up? You know, just do the simple, what is in the book, the rule of 72. And if you can leave it alone, what will you have? But just remember, life happens. And Lee, I never knew about this. They didn't teach this. They didn't teach it in high school. They didn't teach it in college, just like they didn't teach nutrition, right, Maureen, in medical school. They didn't teach this in my brokerage career. What?
Hence the donuts.
It's the donuts.
So I think this book should be mandatory reading for everybody that's in high school or college. I mean, Lee, I want you to keep doing what you're doing. I don't want you to become a professor. But this is one of the most needed pieces of work that I think has been produced. But just people take an inventory. Where are you? And I was afraid to do that when I'm not now, but I was then. But be aware, just be aware of where you are and what are your opportunities. And what if, you know, Terry Latham, who we love and adore, just kept asking me, what if this is real? What if the technology is real? And the technology is real. We have more evidence of that and more of that coming. But how many more people need the opportunity? How many more younger people are looking for this? It's the perfect storm.
Well, Maureen has said this several times in our back and forth, and it's not hers, but you know, when it comes out of her mouth, it looks sweeter. And that is, dig your well before you're thirsty. You know, that's something that's out there, and this is a mature conversation. This isn't about get rich quick. This isn't about I'm going to go off and be able to vacation on an island, every day of the year for the rest of my life. Not that that couldn't happen or that some don't do that, but that's just not that's for me, that's not what gets me to walk across glass, towards a burning fire. The point of all this is that you need to be prepared for the future. That's why we work. That's why we have insurance. That's why we have dreams and visions about the future. And with the economy the way it is, we are getting, we are becoming critically impacted. And if you've been watching even the news, we're seeing here in the end of March 23, that'll kind of date stamp this, and be interesting 6 months to come back and watch this again and say, well, what happened in the intervening 6 months with our currency, with our job stability, with the supply chain, with our global economy, with all of our supporting geopolitical partners, with the wars that are going on. How is all of that affecting us in our real home, with our real families, with real supermarkets and stores and everything that's going on that affects and touches our life? It takes money and it takes security to be able to do that. So I would say, you need to be getting some food storage. You need to get some water set aside. That's just common sense kind of stuff, at least from where I come from. Well, this is the financial side of this. And if you're sitting, like what Jim just said, to take inventory of where you're at right now in your life, do the rule of 72. You can do that with your iPhone or your phone calculator. You can literally do it with a pencil if you can still do math. And you can pencil this out and figure out how long is it going to take for what you have right now. Put a number on the paper of what you have in mostly liquid assets and write your age down. And this is what I've got in the back of the book. I don't know if that will show up on the screen or not, but there's some tables here that you can pencil in your own numbers, and you can figure out your doubling time. If it's 10 years, 12 years, 15 years, whatever it is, and just crunch the numbers and say, I'm going to be 85 before I have enough money that in today's dollars, I could support my lifestyle. Even if I put government rations into that, Social Security or whatever country you're in, that's providing government support. You total all that together and find out that you've got some liquid cash flow coming in from 2 or 3 sources. Is it going to be enough? Will it be enough if I break my arm and can't go to work for 5 years? Will it be enough if I have a heart attack? Will it be enough if all of a sudden my wife or my mother or somebody winds up in an extended living or a nursing facility, and I now have $5,000 to $10,000 a month I have to come up with, to pay for the needed care? You just do these what if scenarios, and you come back to the present moment and realize I need to do something additional because my boss is probably not going to drop more money in my account every month hereafter. And I probably I'm doing the best I can with my business, or I'd already be earning more from my business. And so you make these assumptions and you come to this inevitable conclusion that in today's economy, you need to do something additional. And the good thing is everybody is saying the same thing. That's why it's mainstream. I've tested this several times. I've tested it at the where I get my hair cut. I've tested it in other places where I just talk to them and they say, what are you doing? I happen to say, well, I'm writing a book. You could say you're reading it. I'm writing a book on side hustles. Can you believe that? Of all things, I'm writing a book on side hustles. Well, what's that about? And I say, and I give them a little 72 rule, explanation. And they'll kind of like, oh my, you're right. And they recognize, whether they do anything with it, I don't know, but it initiates this thinking process where it's got to come from somewhere where you're willing now to walk across glass. You're really to walk across the I-beam, from between 2 high towers or whatever. This is now your why. This is why it matters, because I'm not willing to let my 20 grandkids go hungry. I'm just not willing to let them go, without new clothes, or I'm not willing to go hungry, or whatever your status is. Again, it's not about get rich quick. It's about start with the basics. And if it goes there, you can take it there. But this is what drives you, or should drive you, to be thinking about these things. And we, as everybody on this panel has said tonight, we have the most incredible opportunity with this company that's given us the most wonderful health-related thing. And y'all know I could take another 5 hours on that one. But they've given us this health technology that gives us our life back, that anti-ages us so that we can be healthy when we have the money to do something with it. So I'm so appreciative of the each one of you. Maureen has been an inspiration to me from the very start. She keeps sticking pokers in my side to get me to go to go more and do more. And Jim, you're awesome. I so appreciate your willingness to bare your soul and tell your story and write something in the foreword, because I agree with Jim. Now that I'm on the other side of writing this, this was a tough book to write. I had to bare my own soul and look at some of my own scars. And I realized that scars are a lot better than tattoos because they have better stories.
Yeah.
And so we have, everybody's got a story. And most of us don't want to talk about it publicly because it can be a point of embarrassment. It's, we're financially embarrassed. We made stupid decisions. We lost a business. We miscalculated. Every one of us, it doesn't matter how many zeros are behind our income, it doesn't really matter. It's all relative. And anything can take any one of us out, and it could take us all out together in a worst case scenario. So we better kind of be thinking more than we're thinking to get prepared for the future. So for one, I'm deeply grateful to you. I'm grateful to all those listening in. They've given me many comments and, attaboys, and hopefully we can all continue to work in this together.
Yeah. Great.
Lee, it's another gift that you've given to all, and not just people that are in this business. This is something that everybody needs to read. But Maureen, something you said a while back, and we've all heard it before, but can you kind of close with the ripple effect? Because that makes it real. And do you mind sharing that?
No, I'd be happy to. But first I was listening to what Lee was saying, and it reminded me of something that Susie Orman said one time on her show that really affected me deeply. And I'd like to share with all of you. We do a lot for our children, but the greatest gift that you can give to your kids is to not be dependent on them when you're later in life. So you need to be financially responsible so that you give your kids the gift of being able to live their lives without, like what Lee was saying, where, they're worried about paying $5,000, $10,000 a month for your care, your upkeep, or because you didn't plan well. You've got the opportunity to change that now. But one of the things that I absolutely love about being a part of this, which is, being a physician, I could only take care of the person in front of me. But here, we give the gift of these products. We give the gift of educating people about it, making them aware of it. And what we do is like dropping a stone in the middle of a pond, because those people that we share with can turn around and they can share with the people that they love and care about, and so on and so on and so on. And so it's like that little stone in the pond, and the ripple just keeps expanding and expanding until it reaches the other shores. And that's an amazing thing to be a part of, an amazing way to magnify your efforts in the world. And we didn't get a chance, Lee, to talk about whys. Maybe we'll have to do another call, because most of the people who are in Asea, and especially the people who are on this call, for sure, because we've talked about it so often, we're on a mission, and we have reasons that we get up every morning and we go out and we continue to talk to people, whether they say no, whether they say not now. We feel the need and the duty to keep going and making sure that people know about this for their health, for their finances, and so that we can be a force for good in the world.
Sure.
And something someone said, I just want to comment real quick, because, if you rely on your friends and your family, well, sorry. If you want to be successful in any industry, in any business, you have to get comfortable with reaching outside of your network of friends. And that's what we coach our teams to do, the people that we work with. But you must get comfortable with what you have, not be so. My biggest fear is that I say something to scare someone away. I'm a big guy, I'm loud. And I can sometimes, people kind of take me wrong, that I may be talking down to them. And I say, oh, just hear my heart, please, because I truly care and understand what we have. But you have to get comfortable with going out and talking to people. Like Rachel, I'm sure she's listening now, talk to someone at a show up in Kerrville, and That person, I went and met with them today, and they came in. The gentleman has he's a veteran. And having severe back discomfort, and just being able to go out and meet people, but you have to be comfortable talking to other people. And so, guys, Jerry, Yerke, any last words?
Just, it's an honor to be on Asea 5. This has been an amazing conversation. Thank you for the gift of why it matters. I'm honored and privileged, like Jim, to just be a small part of it. And all I can do is recommend everyone needs this book. It is our playbook. Thank you, Dr. Lee.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Just to let everybody know, this is now officially launched. It's on redoxmatters.com. You can get them all there. And the other announcement is that all 3 of the books now are available as an ebook or Kindle book. So that will help with some of the countries that we were having difficulty in distributing this. People who prefer reading it as a Kindle or an ebook, they can now get it that way. Save a couple bucks maybe if they want, but I like Jerry's idea. Get it and highlight it and mark it up. And it's been a privilege to contribute to the cause in doing it.
Super.
So, guys, thank you. We will not be here next Friday. That is Good Friday. That is our celebration, and with Easter. So we will miss you guys next week. We will be back the following week. And I believe we have Dr. Rich Michael, which is someone that you definitely want to come and see. We've got some really exciting things coming up. So Maureen, as always, Dr. Lee, you're awesome. You're a gift. And Jerry, Yerke, it's just so cool to be able to get to meet people.
Yeah.
And that's what's so cool about this. You guys are family. We see Maureen and no, she was not drinking champagne.
Not a celebratory
that was
drink.
not, well, we don't really know.
It's just
That it's sparkly water. So, guys, this show will be available at Redox Matter. There she goes, chug-a-lugging.
Or could be donut coffee.
But every time she does it, we laugh. It's absolutely hilarious.
They need to make smaller bottles. It does look like I'm chugging from a wine bottle or something.
So, guys, we will be back in 2 weeks. This will be available shortly at redoxmatters.com. Please share this. Let's help us educate the world, not only on this technology, but also on the opportunity. And the only reason you guys are all here is because of Next Level Marketing. If it wasn't for this business model, you wouldn't be here. So be thankful. Don't be snobby. I mean, whatever, just come take a look at the facts, analyze it, understand where you are. And guys, help us move this thing forward because everybody in the world needs to hear about it.
Yep.
God bless. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Have a great
See you in 2 weeks.
Easter. Have a great week.
Bye, guys.
See you soon.
God bless.
Bye, y'all.
Bye,
Thanks,
everybody.
Sherry.